concert chaos. Toronto's newest concert venue had its first show last night, and some are pretty disappointed. We'll tell you more about reports of poor crowd control at Rogers Stadium.
And the union representing more than 200 workers at CN Tower says they are locked out after failing to reach a deal with Canada Land Company. So coming up, how that might impact your visit.
And north of Toronto, a 12-year-old boy was bitten by a coyote over the weekend. That's prompted police to remind residents to use extra caution. We'll hear from the community.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thanks for joining us and welcome to Live at 5. Toronto's newest music venue has officially opened its doors. Rogers Stadium welcomed thousands of fans last night, but some concert goers are raising concerns online about overcrowding and long lines and wait times to get on public transit.
And for more, let's go to Melissa Duggan. She's in Downsview. Melissa, you're joining us live. Some fans are pretty unhappy. What all have you been hearing?
Yeah, so we are getting some mixed reviews. We're just outside of Rogers Stadium right now where it is pouring rain at the moment. Thankfully, that wasn't the case last night. We're under a bit of a tent right now looking out at this empty field. I'm seeing a few workers out there picking up after a crowd of 50,000 people that was here last night for the first ever concert at this brand new venue. It was K-pop sensation Stray Kids that was playing. We're hearing good things about the show, that the music was great. But logistically, there are some complaints that are surfacing online, complaining about things like overcrowding, little relief from the heat, little shade that people could access here. Also, little access to water stations. That's another thing we've been hearing about. People not being able to fill up water bottles, staying hydrated, that kind of thing. Low staffing levels, and a lot of complaints surrounding confusion on just how to get out of here at the end of the show. Exits may have been a bit of a concern. Now, we knew that there was a lot of planning that went into all of this. You know, in the run-up to the concert, we learned that TTC and GO Transit would be free for those leaving the concert. Parking certainly at a premium around here. You know, just driving around Rogers Stadium right now, you see plenty of signs that say no parking. We did hear from the Toronto Police today saying that they don't have any reports of calls coming in about all of this. But we are hearing from the city councillor for this area, James Pasternak, saying his office has received concerns about crowd management, traffic flow, accessible parking. Here's what else he's telling us.
There's no doubt that we control some of the regulatory infrastructure there. We can insist on closer and more porta potties or washrooms. When it comes to water in a hot outdoor stadium environment, we have to make sure that people can stay hydrated and can get easy access to water. That is another thing that we can address fairly easily. But yeah, I mean, there's some fixing to do with this.
So this venue is a temporary one. Eventually, it will be torn down, making way for a sprawling development. But in the meantime, there are a lot of concerts coming here, including Coldplay next week, playing 4 straight shows. We are hearing from Councillor Pasternak that he intends to speak with Live Nation and the company that owns this land to hear about the issues that have been raised here. I can also tell you that CP24 has reached out to the venue. We've been asking Live Nation for a comment. We do expect to hear something from them. As soon as we do get that, Lena Bakari will share it with you. Back to you.
All right, Melissa Duggan, live outside Rogers Stadium. Thanks so much, Melissa. Well, community members in Nobleton, that's north of Toronto, are sharing their concerns after a 12-year-old boy was bitten by a coyote this weekend.
A video sent to CTV Toronto shows a man being chased by a coyote just a few minutes away from where the child was targeted. We actually had a chance to catch up with the boy and his mother, who were setting up for a birthday party when the coyote attack happened.
All of a sudden, I just feel 2 big teeth on the side of my leg, and it just bites down. And then I try to get up, but I can't. And then when I finally get up, I start sprinting, and I had like sandals on, so I like kind of like flipped them off, and because I knew I could run faster without them. Yeah. And I just started running, and then the coyote kind of like chased me. But then when I was like on my front porch, he kind of like just started staring at me.
Well, there have been multiple reports of coyote attacks in Nobleton in recent days. The town is working with Toronto Wildlife Center and Vaughan Animal Services on a response plan.
Well, there is labor unrest at one of the city's most iconic attractions ahead of Canada Day. Unifor says more than 250 workers at the CN Tower have been locked out after failing to reach a deal with the federal Crown Corporation that runs the tourist attraction.
For more, let's go live to CP24's Lindsay Biscaya, who joins us. She's outside of the CN Tower. Lindsay, you've been there all day.
Yeah, I have, Bakari, and you know what? These picketing workers have been here longer than I have. They've been here since 8 a.m. this morning, and they are still rallying, talking about, right now they're chanting about being uniform, but they've been chanting a number of different slogans. This comes after these workers were locked out of the CN Tower by Canada Lands Company, which is the company that owns and operates the CN Tower. So we are right underneath the CN Tower today, and people can still go up here, but at the same time, restaurants and cafes are not open because these workers are usually the kitchen staff, so they're the chefs, the cooks, the servers, the hosts, and they've been locked out after they rejected the last deal by Canada Lands. Now, Canada Lands offered them that deal on Thursday, saying it was the best they could do. The union got back to Canada Lands saying, no, this isn't good enough, and then Unifor says that's when it was told that its workers would be locked out. And these workers here today making it very clear that they have been locked out. They didn't decide to strike, but now they are on the picket lines. We spoke with the local union president earlier. He's actually a server at the top of the CN Tower usually, and he was talking about what's most important to him. Pensions is one of the big sticking points in these negotiations. Here's more on what Shan had to say.
We have some elderly employees who are going to retire. It's not a great idea to just give them a cake and say goodbye. So the union feels that it's necessary that they said there's some sort of compensation. For some of them putting in experience for 40 years, 45 years. We have employees working here from day one. The average employment is like 30 years experience there. So we can't just ignore the fact that when they leave, we can just let them go. They sacrifice majority of their life here, which means there's some sort of gratitude has to be shown to them by giving some monetary benefits. And the company wants to take that away.
So, as I mentioned earlier, Lena and Bakari, important to note that even on Canada Day tomorrow, the CN Tower will be open for people to come and visit. You can go up. The observation towers are still open. You can do the edge walk. The shop is open. But as I mentioned, restaurants and cafes are closed because of these workers being locked out. And so people are being advised to bring their own food and drink up the CN Tower if they want to, because there's going to be nothing else for them to eat there. And we did catch up with a couple of people who went up the tower today to talk about whether it made any kind of difference to their visit. Take a listen.
Just surprised that there weren't any restaurants open. Normally you can get like drinks or snacks or whatever, but there was nothing there. So,
but otherwise, was it okay, or
it was fine. It was great.
A lot of empty patrons, like empty-handed patrons, and people that looked like maybe they could have used something to drink or eat. Yeah, tables were still occupied, but just nothing to drink.
So we've got these picketers. You might be able to see Blue Jays fans behind them. That's because there's a big Jays game tonight against the Yankees. So a lot of Jays fans are also here down underneath the tower and at Rogers Centre lining up for that game. And we've got strikers here on this side on Bremner Street, but also on Front Street as well. These picketers are handing out flyers, just giving people information in terms of what's going on. As for negotiations, both sides have said they are happy to get back to the bargaining table, but at this point there's no date for when that's going to happen. Back to you.
Okay, CP24's Lindsay Biscaya continuing our live coverage outside of the CN Tower. Thanks, Lindsay. Canadians will mark the country's 158th birthday tomorrow, and there's no shortage of celebrations all across the GTA.
Yeah, fireworks displays will be held at Ashbridges Bay Park at 10 p.m. on Canada Day, as well as in Centennial Park in Etobicoke, Milliken Park, that's in Scarborough, and Stan Wadlow Park in East York. And festivities already underway. Canada's Wonderland. We spoke to the park's public relations director about what visitors can expect.
Of course, we have our big fireworks show. This takes place tonight. It is one night only. If you have not seen this show before, you're missing out. So make sure that you see it at some point. We've got thousands of explosions happening over the park, all choreographed to a great soundtrack. And that is at 10 o'clock tonight.
Will also be hosting a special Canada Day celebration. There's going to be live performances at Queen's Park, as well as midway rides, crafts, games, and food. Visitors will also be able to take a tour of the Legislative Building. The event begins at 10 in the morning, and festivities go until 5 in the evening.
And Mel Lastman Square in North York is hosting celebrations tomorrow. The family-oriented event features children's activities, live music, food, and beverage vendors. The highlight will be a 4-minute-long fireworks display, and that is set to begin at 10 o'clock.
And since Canada Day falls on a Tuesday this year, today might be your last chance to stock up anything you need before closures on the holiday. So banks, government buildings, most grocery stores are going to be closed, along with all LCBO locations and some shopping malls. Tourist attractions will be open on Tuesday, along with the wine rack and select beer stores, as well as some other shopping malls, such as the Eaton Center in Square One. The TTC, that'll operate on a holiday schedule.
And the city welcomed a royal visitor today.
The Duke of Edinburgh stopped by the Toronto Police Marine Unit this morning. Prince Edward met with officers at the facility on Queens Quay and was given a tour. He arrived in Toronto after spending 3 days on PEI. That's where he was visiting in his capacity as Colonel-in-Chief of the Prince Edward Island Regiment, which is marking its 150th anniversary. Edward is scheduled to fly to Ottawa for Canada Day celebrations tomorrow.
And starting tomorrow, party bikes or pedal pubs will be allowed to serve alcohol on board during tours.
The Ford government announced last week that companies are going to be allowed to apply for liquor licenses starting tomorrow, July 1st. The province launched a pedal pub pilot in 2022, but alcohol was not allowed on the large multi-person bicycles seen here. The pedal pubs currently operate in Toronto, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ottawa, and Windsor. A province which claims the move is meant to boost tourism says municipalities will be able to put their own rules in place surrounding the operation of pedal pubs.
And also starting tomorrow, app-based gig workers like rideshare drivers and food delivery couriers, they're going to be entitled to a regular minimum wage of $17.20 per hour for active time. These workers will also be able to receive information from their employer about their pay and tips under the province's digital platform Workers' Rights Act.
Right now it's 5:12, 22 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, we are following developments out of Etobicoke tonight after a fire destroyed a home early this morning. The very latest on the investigation. That's next. Following breaking news, Mitch Marner's tenure with the Toronto Maple Leafs is officially over.
TSN reporting Marner has agreed to an 8-year contract worth $12 million annually as part of a sign and trade that will send him to the Vegas Golden Knights. It's not clear what the Leafs are going to be getting in return as part of the sign and trade.
And for more on the official end of an era in Leafland, we're joined now by CP24's Andrew Brennan. Andrew.
This is a surprise to get at the end of the day. I'm glad I didn't take my makeup off. And as we're looking right now of what's going on, we don't know what the Leafs are getting back here because things are still so up in the air. We know the deal's in place. We're probably not going to get those returns from the Vegas Golden Knights, at least on paper, for a while now. We do know, though, that the Leafs are looking for pieces now. This isn't like a situation where, there's a barn burning situation and you're ultimately trying to get rid of your talent and rebuild. The Leafs are looking to win and win now. And now that they're down to a core 3 minus Mitch Marner, the question becomes, who are you going to be having that'll be working on the right side of Austin Matthews? Who's going to be leading your top line, or at least being one of the big leaders in the locker room along with Captain Matthews? There's a lot of questions here. That being said, when we look back at Mitch Marner's legacy with Toronto, he started off with this team. He's already one of the top scoring, or at least when it comes to assists, he's one of the top 3 already, just in terms of Leafs. For the 9 years that he's been here, done quite a bit for the team. However, continuously, there have been questions about what happens to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. And during the playoffs, unfortunately, Mitch Marner's record and his stats are not what they are during the regular season. He's beaten the 100-point mark more than once during the regular season. He was held almost pointless during the last 2 rounds of the NHL playoffs this year. That tells you a little bit about the discrepancy between regular season Mitch Marner and end of season playoff Mitch Marner. The team needs to win now, and now they're losing number 16. We're going to send it back to you both. I know we're getting more details throughout the evening on this monster sign and trade deal. Again, something to remember for people at home. During the free agency period up until July 1st, that's the window that teams have to do something like this. And it was expected that the Leafs are going to try, or going to at least try, to get something, anything for Marner in return. Instead of having him go to free agency on July 1st, he can't get an 8-year deal on the open market. So at least this way he's gotten that form of certainty for 8 years instead of 7. That gives him at least $13 million more to play with. And it means that the Leafs are able to get something. What we don't know, but something back sooner or later to hopefully win their first cup since 1967. Back to you both.
All right, joining us live from the newsroom with the breaking news about Mitch Marner, CP24's Andrew Brennan. Well, a home in Etobicoke has been gutted after a fire broke out at the property.
Firefighters were called to an address on Martin Grove Road, south of Rathburn, shortly after 3 o'clock this morning. Toronto Fire says the house was engulfed in flames when crews arrived. The damage extensive, but no injuries have been reported. The home was undergoing renovations, and no one was inside at the time. There's no word yet on what sparked the blaze.
Okay, more now on one of our top stories. So Toronto's newest music venue, it's officially opened its doors.
Yeah, and Rogers Stadium welcomed thousands of fans last night. But some concert goers are raising concerns online about overcrowding and long lines and wait times in and around the stadium. Let's talk to Nav Dalio now. She was there at last night's concert at Rogers Stadium with her children. Thank you so much for joining us. Take us back to last night. What was the experience like for you and your family?
First off, a concert venue with an open door atmosphere. Once the music starts, nothing can really beat that, right? With clear skies and warm weather. However, getting to our seat was a bit of a mission. We knew going in, 50,000 people, so we gave ourselves plenty of time. We had 2 kids with us, preteens, but it was a bit of a difficulty, especially for people who are elderly, people who have any sort of accessibility issues. First off, just getting off Downsview Station, the escalators to exit the station wasn't in service, so there was a real bottleneck to go up several steps of stairs. Signage wasn't really the best, so a lot of people in the heat were standing in lines that actually they thought was for the entrance, but was for a merch line, only to 40 minutes later realize that they didn't have to stand in that line. The path just to get into Rogers Stadium, there was a lot of gravel and rocky paths as well. That raises some mobility issues. And once we got in, we were sitting in the stands. We were first row in the east stand, so we didn't think we'd have to climb so high. But once we got to the stands, we realized that there was at least a minimum of 50 steps that you had to climb to get to halfway up those stands. And then depending on where your seat is, you either have to go down or you have to go up again. So, that raises a lot of concerns because there were a lot of people. Actually, the row behind us had some elderly people as well who were there bringing their grandkids or their, daughters to the concert, and they were out of breath. So, if you've got any sort of mobility issues or heart problems, to be in the heat and to climb that many steps, it was a real mission.
Yeah, and, along with that, take us back to that night in terms of how hot was it? What was the weather like? And I asked that because you mentioned that you couldn't bring your own water. So, staying hydrated, staying cool. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so everybody had to spill out their water before entering through the gates. So everyone was being really good about it, drinking as much water as possible. But it was clear skies. The sun was very strong. Even though forecast was 25, 26 degrees, we didn't think it would be that hot, but it was. There was no shade because there's no buildings around. You're out in open field. So there weren't really any shaded areas. There were 2 tents in the fan plaza, but obviously they're filled. I mean, it's not going to fit, thousands of people. So it was hard. Once you got in, we thought, okay, we all got emails beforehand that you can bring in 1 empty plastic water bottle, which we did, but then only to realize that the lineup for the water station was an hour long.
Wow.
So we had 2 kids, so we were just like, okay, we can't do that. We bought water. You have to buy overpriced water, and they're not even that big, the bottles. So that was the number one thing I heard inside was people complaining about water. So that was a really, really big issue. And we just thought, like, if you have a sealed water bottle, why would it be so difficult? And we weren't even in a heat wave. So I can't even imagine for the concerts.
Now, we're running out of time here, but really quickly, I want to ask, based on everything you experienced yesterday, and I know you said there was some good and some bad, would you go back?
No. I would not go back. It was too much of a mission. There's easy fixes, and they need to do it for accessibility and for water, and a lot more messaging. But I think I've had my fair share of Rogers Stadium. I wouldn't go back.
Okay, Navdelia Ball, thank you so much for joining us to talk about your experience. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Nav. And we did reach out to Live Nation. We are waiting an update from them. Right now it's 5:22 and 22 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Well, Canada and the United States are talking once again. The latest on where we stand now when it comes to this ever-evolving trade war and what may come next.
The White House says that trade negotiations with Canada will resume immediately. This is after the federal government rescinded the digital services tax.
The measure announced in 2020 forces foreign tech giants to pay a 3% tax on revenue from Canadian users. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump took aim at the tax and announced his team was ending all trade talks with Canada because of it. Today, we learned he is reversing that decision and that negotiations will be restarted.
Last night, I had a good conversation with President Trump, and we agreed to recommence our negotiations with a view to the 21st of July deadline that we had agreed in. Kananaskis, Minister Champagne and LeBlanc had conversations with their counterparts as well. We've restarted the discussions this morning.
So the White House says that Prime Minister Mark Carney caved to U.S. President Trump and the United States of America.
President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax that would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The president made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the president last night to let the president know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
Now, the scrapping of the tax comes just before the first payment was coming due. It would have left tech giants like Amazon and Google with a $2 billion bill.
And we're keeping track of the Canadians on the grass. This is at Wimbledon.
Game settlement.
25th ranked Felix Auger-Aliassime surviving a 5-set marathon against unranked Australian James Duckworth, winning 6-2, 3-6, 7-6, 6-4, 6-4. He'll take on the winner of Jan-Leonard Struff and Philippe Misalik in the second round. Also on the men's side, Gabriel Diallo takes on Daniel Altmaier this afternoon.
Set match. Fernandez.
And on the women's side, 29th ranked Leylah Fernandez beating her 16-year-old British counterpart, Hannah Klugeman, in straight sets, 6-1, 6-3. Fernandez is now going to take on unranked German Laura Ziegman in the second round at the All England Club. Now, elsewhere, Carson Branstein fell in her Grand Slam debut to world number one Aryna Sabalenka, 6-1, 7-5.
It is 5:28, 22 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And we're following breaking news from the Toronto Maple Leafs with Mitch Marner heading to Vegas and a sign and trade deal being reported by our colleagues at TSN. Stay with us for the very latest. We're following breaking news with Mitch Marner making his exit from the Toronto Maple Leafs, the very latest in moments.
Concert chaos. Toronto's newest concert venue had its first show last night, and some fans are pretty disappointed. We'll tell you more about reports of poor crowd control at Rogers Stadium.
And the union representing more than 200 workers at CN Tower say they are locked out. This is after failing to reach a deal with Canada Land Company. Coming up, how that might impact your visit.
And north of Toronto, a 12-year-old boy was bitten by a coyote over the weekend. That's prompted police to remind residents to use extra caution. We'll hear from the community.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latifat.
I'm Bakari Savage.
We start with breaking news. Mitch Marner's tenure with the Toronto Maple Leafs is officially over.
TSN reporting Marner has agreed to an 8-year contract worth $12 million annually as part of a sign and trade that'll send him to the Vegas Golden Knights. So it's not clear what the Leafs are going to be getting in return as part of the sign and trade.
Okay, for all the details, let's bring in CP24's Andrew Brennan. This is major news, Andrew.
Yeah, it's actually going to make all of those NHL trade deadline shows tomorrow, at least for Leafs fans. There's nothing bigger than this. This is the main show now. So let's talk about what this, one, means for the Leafs, and two, why this probably happened. So, number one, what the Leafs are getting. We don't know, but we do know when we've heard from Brad Treliving, the GM, and from the bench boss, Craig Berube. This is a team that wants to win right now. This is a team that's lost one of the core 4 members. And with the core 3 they have left, you have to wonder, who are they going to be trying to get either from this trade or during free agency to be able to fill a top-line wingman role, to work with someone like Austin Matthews, who is an elite goal scorer, perhaps the best of his generation in the NHL. And you want to have someone like a Mitch Marner who can work from the easy spots and then reward players who go to the tough spots on the ice by working passes off the wall or into traffic and getting people the passes that ultimately get them the goals in the big moments. Mitch Marner has 100 points on the season last year for a reason. He also has, going back for several seasons, at least 60 assists over the span of any season in the last 5 years. The problem becomes is what does this team need to get over the hump of the playoffs? And it seems that the Maple Leafs have decided that the current regime and the current players as is won't work. So let's think now to the second part of this, why this all happened right now. So after the Leafs once again disappointedly left the playoffs earlier than fans hoped for, Mitch Marner was among the players that were questioned for underperforming. Every game that the Leafs lost, Mitch Marner didn't score or have an assist during the Florida matchup. Unfortunately, that is something that seems to have been par for the course for Mitch Marner during playoffs over the last few years. This is a team that wants to look for someone that delivers during the playoffs, the same as during the regular season, gets the pass to the elite goal scorer in the big moments. We are going to have to watch and look with rapt attention, guys, because we don't know what's happening. But Leafs Nation, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I've been waiting for a Stanley Cup since 1967. It has been a very long time. We've had the pieces in place to hope for a very long time. We'll have to see what happens without number 16, who leaves us for an 8-year deal in Vegas that he could only get by signing with Toronto first and then being traded away. Mitch Marner, so long. Back to you, Bo.
Okay, CP24's Andrew Brennan joining us live from the newsroom. Toronto's newest music video, it's officially opened its doors.
Yeah, Rogers Stadium welcomed thousands of fans last night, but concertgoers, some of them, are raising concerns online about overcrowding and long lines and wait times in and around the venue. For more on this, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan in Downsview. We just spoke with one concertgoer who says, Melissa, based on what she and her family experienced last night, they would not go back.
Yeah, we are hearing some of that online as well right now. Some complaints surfacing after the first ever concert at Rogers Stadium. Now in the history books, it was K-pop sensation Stray Kids that took to the stage first here. We've got Coldplay coming here next week, and with 50,000 people per show, we're going to be hearing a lot about this venue for the next little while, I think. What we're hearing right now, some complaints after last night's show about overcrowding. Some saying there's little escape from the heat, not a lot of shade here. Some say there's not enough access to water to fill up your water bottles, especially on a hot day. The exit of this stadium, though, that is where we're seeing a big bulk of the complaints really focused on. You know, the show wraps, you're looking to get out of here, 50,000 people, there may be some bottlenecks, and that is what some people say they experienced. We're also hearing from Toronto police saying that they haven't received any calls about this venue, but we are hearing about the number of complaints that one city official says that they are getting. And that is a councillor for this area. We heard from him earlier today. Here's some of what he has to say.
There's no doubt that on the positive side, we moved 50,000 people in and out of the venue fairly safely with the support of TTC and Go Transit. At the same time, there is some work to do. My office also has received some concerns about crowd management and traffic flow and accessible parking. And we're going to be meeting with Live Nation and Northcrest on Wednesday to debrief and fix these issues.
Just moments ago, we heard from the City of Toronto. Here's what they're telling us. The City of Toronto received 7 noise-related complaints through 311 last night in connection with an event at Rogers Stadium. As part of the approved noise exemption permit, municipal law enforcement officers were on site to monitor the conditions on the permit. They were also deployed to monitor sound levels in surrounding neighborhoods to assess the broader impact. The measurements taken on site indicated that the event remained in compliance with its approved noise exemption permit. Well, as I mentioned, there are plenty of concerts still on their way here, including Coldplay next week, playing 4 shows, and then a bunch of other shows over the summer as well. This is a temporary venue. It's not going to be here forever. Eventually, it will be taken down. There's going to be a sprawling development that will come in its place. But certainly looking ahead to these future shows, people want to make sure that they're going to get out of here safely and that they're going to have an enjoyable experience. Now, we did reach out to the venue. We're asking Live Nation for their comment about these complaints that we're hearing. And we should say, not everyone's complaining. People are saying it was a great show. Music was great. Live Nation hasn't gotten back to us just yet about some of the issues that were raised here. But Bakari and Lena, this is certainly a story that we're going to be following closely. Back to you.
Okay, and again, the city meeting with Live Nation in a couple of days to look for solutions. But as you mentioned, a lot of people did have a great time last night, and that's important to note. Thanks, Melissa. Well, community members north of Toronto in Nobleton, they're sharing their concerns after a 12-year-old boy was bitten by a coyote this weekend.
A video sent to CTV24 shows a man being chased by a coyote just a few minutes away from where the child was targeted. We had a chance to catch up with the boy and his mother, who were setting up for a birthday party when the coyote attack happened.
I just feel like teeth dig into my skin, and it kind of like felt weird. So then I looked over and I saw it was a coyote. And then he kind of backed off, and then I just sprinted.
And then you went to the hospital.
And
then
they told me I got really lucky, and it could have been way worse.
The last thing I want is for him to be afraid to go outside and ride his bike, or go outside and play with his friends, or go outside and swim in the pool, or, you know, I want him to live the life of a 12-year-old, you know, and I just don't want this to change how that would be. But at the same time, you know, now do I leave him outside on his own? Do, you know, like it's been a concern in the community. We see coyotes all the time. They've never approached, I mean, as far as I know, never approached any of us in this area. This is the first time. And it's not like it was provoked. He was just sitting there on his phone, and he didn't even see it coming.
There have been multiple reports of coyote attacks in Nobleton in recent days, so the town is working with the Toronto Wildlife Centre as well as Vaughan Animal Services on a response plan.
In other news tonight, an elderly woman has died nearly a week after being hit by a vehicle in North York.
It happened last Tuesday afternoon at Victoria Park in Sunrise. The 99-year-old pedestrian was crossing Sunrise when she was hit by a vehicle making a left turn. She was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. Today, she died in hospital, and police continue to investigate the collision. They're asking anyone with security or dashcam video to contact them.
A man is in life-threatening condition after being struck by a vehicle during a brawl outside a Forge FC match in Hamilton. It happened shortly after 6 o'clock last night outside Hamilton Stadium. A 32-year-old man rushed to hospital in critical condition where he remains this hour. Police believe he was in a fight with multiple people before he fell into traffic. Investigators are trying to identify those involved, and they're looking over security footage.
And police have completed their search of the landfill. It's part of the probe into a Hamilton woman's death.
Yeah, investigators say they found Shalini Singh's partial remains in the Glanbrook landfill back in May. That 40-year-old was reported missing last December, and police had been scouring the landfill since late February. Her boyfriend, Jeffrey Smith, was charged with second-degree murder earlier this month. Police say no additional human remains were found, and they have no information to support continuing the search. Anybody with information is asked to contact police. A Vaughan man is charged after a violent threat was allegedly directed at a female player during a youth soccer game.
53-year-old Gianni Luciani is charged with uttering threats. This was during a girls under-13 soccer match that was earlier this month near Dufferin and the 407. So police say that the accused is a parent of a player. In a video reviewed by CTV, a man can be heard using an expletive and threatening to stab someone after two players collided. The young player was described as being visibly distraught afterwards. The footage did not clearly identify the speaker, but coaches say that the threat was directed at one of their 12-year-old players. The other team previously denied that version of events, calling it inaccurate and misleading.
541, 22 degrees, feeling more like 29 out there, so it's certainly very humid. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, also coming up, it's been a busy day outside the CN Tower with more than 200 workers now officially locked out. We're going to check in with our Lindsay Biscaya on their situation this hour. That's next. There's labor unrest at one of the city's most iconic attractions. This is ahead of Canada Day.
Yeah, Unifor says more than 250 workers at the CN Tower have been locked out after failing to reach a deal with the Federal Crown Corporation that runs the tourist attraction. Let's check back in with CP24's Lindsay Biscaya, who's by the picket line. Lindsay, tell us more about these workers' concerns.
Well, at this point, Lena and Bakari, the main concerns are wages, pensions, benefits, and health and safety. And depending on the worker and where they work at the CN Tower, that main concern varies, but those are roughly the main ones. These picketers have been here all day. These are Unifor workers that have been locked out by the CN Tower. It's been raining for an hour now, and they have not stopped this, and they have barely stopped all day. So what's happened here is obviously the union representing these workers and Canada Lands Company, which is the company that owns and operates the CN Tower, have been in negotiations for a new agreement since April. And just last night, they were unable to reach a deal by the deadline of 12:01 a.m. And so today, Canada Lands has informed Unifor that its workers will be locked out of the CN Tower because a deal has not been reached. Canada Lands says that it offered its best deal on Thursday, and Unifor has rejected that deal, and so that lockout begins. We're talking about 250, more than 250 unionized workers at the CN Tower. And members of this union say that, yes, they have those sticking points that I mentioned off the top, and they would like better wages and better pensions and to be taken care of a little bit better. Here's more on what they have to say today.
We want more fair wages. We want better pension plan. The pension plan has been not increased for at least 15 years now. And out of all the crown corporations like VRL and Canada Post, who are not making profit, who are running on a loss, have better pension plan than ours. And our pension plan has been like 20 years like this. Nothing has changed. We wanted improvement on it for sure.
Union power! So these union workers are mostly the kitchen staff, so you're talking about hosts, servers, chefs, cooks, butchers, bartenders at the CN Tower. And so because of that, the CN Tower is still open today. People have been going up it all day, Lena and Bakari. The Edgewalk is open, the observation towers are open, the shop is open, but the restaurants and cafes are not open. And the CN Tower has been telling people you can bring in your own food and drink because there's nothing here for you to eat or drink. And I was asking people who had gone up the tower whether that affected their experience. Here's what they have to say.
Just surprised that there weren't any restaurants open. Normally you can get like drinks or snacks or whatever, but there was nothing there. So,
But otherwise, was it okay or was it?
it was fine. It was great.
A lot of empty patrons, like empty-handed patrons, and people that looked like maybe they could have used something to drink or eat. Yeah, tables were still occupied, but just nothing to drink.
Another man just came up to me about 20 minutes ago, Lena and Bakari, and he said his cousin is visiting from Jamaica, and he specifically wanted to go to the restaurant at the top of this tower, but because it's closed, they didn't end up going up. So a little bit of disappointment there. They were heading to the Jays game, though, so hopefully their night is not entirely ruined. But either way, these picketers will be here for quite some time, rain or shine. We know that the union and Canada Lands has said they are happy to continue negotiating, but at this point, there is no word on when the two sides will get back to the table. Back to you.
Okay, so you can go up the tower, you just won't get any food or drink, and that's got to be a strange experience. Lindsay Biscaya reporting live. Thanks, Lindsay. 547, 21 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
More news straight ahead. Stay with us. The White House says that trade negotiations with Canada will resume immediately after the federal government rescinded the digital services tax.
The measure announced in 2020 forces foreign tech giants to pay a 3% tax on revenue from Canadian users. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump took aim at the tax and announced his team was ending all trade talks with Canada because of it. Today, we learned he is reversing that decision and negotiations will be restarted.
Last night, I had a good conversation with President Trump, and we agreed to recommence our negotiations with a view to the 21st of July deadline that we had agreed in. Kananaskis, Minister Champagne and LeBlanc had conversations with their counterparts as well. We've restarted the discussions this morning.
And the White House says that Prime Minister Mark Carney, quote, caved to U.S. President Trump and the United States of America.
President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax that would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The president made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the president last night to let the president know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
And former Canadian ambassador to the U.S., Frank McKenna, says he's not surprised the government was willing to put the brakes on the tax in pursuit of a larger trade deal.
Truthfully, it's just realpolitik. The United States is a powerful country, both militarily and economically, and it's important for Canada to be in the same camp. We would call it Fortress North America. And again, so much of our economy is leveraged to the United States of America that I think we're prepared to make minor concessions in order to be able to soldier on.
Yeah, so the timing of this is interesting because the scrapping of the tax, it comes just before the first payment was coming due, which would have left tech giants like Amazon and Google with a $2 billion bill.
It's 5:53, 21 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
And there's no shortage of activities in and around the city to celebrate Canada Day tomorrow. We're going to have more on some of your options coming up.
Welcome back. Canadians will mark the country's 158th birthday tomorrow, and there is no shortage of celebrations across the GTA.
Firework displays are going to be held at Ashridge Bay Park at 10 p.m. on Canada Day, as well as in Centennial Park in Etobicoke, Milliken Park in Scarborough, and Sam Wadlow Park in East York.
And Canada Day festivities already underway at Canada's Wonderland. We spoke to the park's public relations director, Grace Peacock, about what guests can expect.
Of course, we have our big fireworks show. This takes place tonight. It is one night only. If you have not seen this show before, you're missing out. So make sure that you see it at some point. We've got thousands of explosions happening over the park, all choreographed to a great soundtrack. And that is at 10 o'clock tonight. And
the Ontario Legislature will also be hosting a special Canada Day celebration. There will be live performances at Queen's Park, as well as midway rides, crafts, games, and food. And visitors will also be able to take a tour of the legislative building. The event begins at 10 in the morning, and the festivities run until 5 p.m.
And Mel Lastman Square in North York is hosting a Canada Day celebration tomorrow. The family-oriented event features children's activities, live music, and food and beverage vendors. The highlight will be a 4-minute-long fireworks display, and that is set to begin at 10 p.m.
Well, since Canada Day falls on a Tuesday this year, today might be your last chance to stock up on anything you need before closures on the holiday. So banks, government buildings, and most grocery stores, they're going to be closed, as well as all LCBO locations. And some shopping malls and tourist attractions, they're going to be open on Tuesday, along with wine rack and select beer stores. The TTC is going to operate on a holiday schedule.
And several malls will be open across the GTHA for Canada Day. In Toronto, the CF Eaton Centre is open. In York Region, Upper Canada Mall, Hillcrest Mall, the Promenade, Vaughan Mills, and CF Markville will be open. In Peel Region, Square One and Bramalea City Centre will be open. And Toronto Premium Outlets will welcome shoppers for holiday hours.
Okay, also, we're following breaking news. Mitch Marner's tenure with the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's officially over.
Yeah, big news from Leaf Nation today. TSN reporting Marner has agreed to an 8-year contract worth $12 million annually as part of a sign and trade that is going to send him to the Vegas Golden Knights. It is unclear what the Leafs will be getting in return as part of this sign and trade. It's the end of an era in Toronto for the Leafs.
Well, meanwhile, the Leafs have swung a trade with the Utah Mammoth, acquiring Finnish forward Matthias Maselli.
The Leafs giving up a 2027 third-round draft pick that can become a 2029 second-rounder if he records at least 51 points next year. The 24-year-old winger put up 18 points in 55 games last year for Utah, a significant decline from the season prior when he tallied 57 points in 82 games. Maselli is set to earn just under $3.5 million per season.
Well, it's 5:59, 21 degrees. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thanks so much for watching. CTV News at 6 o'clock is coming up next. Stay with us.